Well, hello, creatives, community, and kind folks. Welcome to RPG with DBJ. I am your host, DBJ, and all of you, are my co hosts. Thank you very much for being here. Now, full disclosure, I always like to give a little preamble to let people know exactly what kind of theme we're going to be talking about, not just today, but all week long, and kind of where my mind is at. And then hopefully that in turn will elicit some creative spark in you guys out there, and especially the co-hosts that are part of the show. Hey, Cam, what's going on there? Thank you very much for being here. So you know that at the beginning of the year, I talked quite a bit about the what is it great ideas, terrible execution movies and television shows. And one of the things, thank you very much, Cam, for co-hosting this uh strange section of the interwebs with me here. I really appreciate it. So um we often talk about, and I talked about the fact that, since many of us were trapped away, and we talked about a lot of fantasy and science fiction and other things that were like, you're like, okay, I wasted a lot of time like watching a television show or a movie or something that had a great premise but terrible execution. But I'm taking a slight detour from that because most recently I did see the movie Nomad Land. Actually, I saw it many weeks ago, but it really stuck with me. And every once in a while, you guys know that I'm a letter carrier in the United States. I'm a mailman, and it I'm often in my own head. In my own thoughts, and it starts to come back to me. And it, of course, is an award-winning movie. And I thought this would be a great if an idea sticks with me, no matter what that idea is. I like to exercise that idea to like an exorcism, to get it out by using it as creative fuel. And I thought I'd punish the rest of you guys with it. So, in short, Nomad Land is about young. I'll read the preamble and then give you some slight details. All right. Let's see. Nomad Land is a 2020 American drama film based on the 2017 nonfiction book Nomad Land: Surviving America in the 21st Century by Jessica Bruder. The film was written, edited, produced, and directed by Chloe Zhao and stars Frances McDormand, who is also a producer on the film, as a dwelling working nomad who leaves her hometown after her husband dies and the soul industry closes down to be houseless and travel around the United States. David Stratham also stars in a supporting role. A number of real life nomads appear as fictionalized versions of themselves, including Linda Mae Swanky and Bobby Wells. Um, and the simple plot is like in 2011, Fern loses her job after the U.S. gypsum plant in Empire, Nevada shuts down. She worked there for years along with her husband, who recently died. Fern decides to sell most of her belongings and purchases a van to live in and travel the country searching for work. And so the the reason I think it really hit, and this is specifically about the movie, is that other than maybe three like known actors in the movie, the rest of the people are unknowns and or real life people. And the way the movie is filmed, it's like a docudrama almost. You can't tell the difference. And when you finish the movie and realize, because at the time I didn't know, I was like, oh, it's a great story. Let's go watch this thing. And the movie doesn't make a judgment about the people or their behaviors or their reasoning. It leaves it. It's like, here's all the information. You can decide for yourself who's the protagonist, antagonist, whether people made the right decision, wrong decision. And I absolutely positively love the idea that of that. And because by the end of the movie, which at the time I watched it, I didn't know that so many people in the movie are real individuals who are really in those situations. Um, it hit me in the feels. I was like, like, would I make that decision? How could I live that way? And so I was like, well, we could talk about this in Dungeons and Dragons. So now that we circle back to the main point of the show, we're going to talk about uh no a nomad land. We're going to talk about like the the endless horizon, the endless dawn of constantly moving, and especially in our, Dungeons and Dragons and other tabletop role playing games. And today, being Monster Monday, we're going to talk about NPCs, monsters, adversaries, and that kind of thing, and kind of find some that maybe normally don't go on these journeys, find some other types of monsters and adversaries that maybe should be going on these journeys, and we don't often talk about it. And even big bads maybe having to move out of their old loft apartments and move somewhere else along our world. So let me begin by saying that there are many monsters out there that are in our classic games that kind of lend themselves greatly to migratory movements. And I've spoken to a number of people, whether it's like online or chats or things like that, that have used that as an inciting event in their games, whether it's like the migratory moves of the Dragonborn or the Axe Beaks or the acid spitting Ankhegs or boulets, the little land sharks or purple worms or something like that, moving from one area to another. And that can be a really good inciting event, especially if a new settlement grows and exists in the pathway of some type of natural migratory animals. When I say natural, they're fantastical in the world. I mean, to us outside of it, but within the fantasy world, they might just be very regular old creatures like axe beaks or bloodhawks or uh, owl bears or something of that nature. And people may live in their pathway not knowing. And a good example of not knowing would be most recently, especially here in the States. Hey, what's going on there, Ushi? Howdy to you. Kind of fitting, as I'm imagining you on horseback, moving along with a herd or some such, which is exactly what we're going to talk about today. The the idea. What's the 17-year cicada is coming back here in the States, where they hibernate for 17 years, and scientists are still trying to figure out how they know to hibernate for 17 years exactly and then come out of hiding and whatnot. Um, yeah, Mova calls like, hey, I heard you dislike the ropers you fought in winter. Did you know they might migrate to wherever you are in summer? Yeah, exactly. And they're like, PCs are like, why are they hunting us? And the ropers are like, why are you following us? Like, we didn't do it. I don't like you either. Follow, you know. But I mean, it's actually kind of a cool thing too, about having like um Ushi makes a comment here because off the comment I made, he's making a comment. It says two different groups hibernate on prime number rotations, so the colonies don't come out at the same time. Which I guarantee you, as humanity has spread across the earth, and we've even seen this in science fiction, where humanity goes off to the stars and lands on a planet, not knowing about the cycles that take so long for humanity to involve themselves, that they don't know that they put themselves into a particular position that they might that they might encounter something. Yep. Yeah, Cameron says, sorry, I read another comment by Mova Call. Cameron mentions a human migration, giant caravan, a moving city on a road, maybe call it the Wanderer's Bazaar. Oh, absolutely. There is some great artwork out there. You go to like ArtStation or DeviantArt or whatever, and find some excellent looking caravan styled art with like strange giant lizards or dinosaurs or machines or something like that. And I think there's something great about that, because it's like it's both. I think it's underserved in role playing games because, on one hand, you get to have a base of operations for your player characters. Let's say like desert nomads or something, and the nomadic group gets to move, or the classic first level or even zero level adventure. You're protecting a trade caravan or something, and it allows you as the game master to both have a base of operations with a number of NPCs that they can communicate with. It gives It also allows us to have something the players have to concern themselves with. Protect the caravan, make sure things aren't stolen or the animals aren't hurt or predators and things. And then yet the landscape keeps changing. The next session, next time they move, you can create yourself a whole other set of problems that are in front of them, challenges, monsters, etc. So yeah, absolutely. And like Ushi saying like two different groups hibernating on prime number rotations, it's like, well, what the hell happened? Moving back and forth and stuff. And I like that. Yeah, Ushi agrees with me. Like moving cities are very cool, especially if you have to do something like you what is it a planet with a moving band around it. It's like where the sun facing side is blasting and the sun facing side is blasted heat, and then the cold darkness facing side is frozen, but there's this middle band that keeps moving because as the planet turns and having to move along that. I think that would be awesome. Heck, you could even have cities on tracks or big treads or something like that. I was laughing at Movakal's comment about Krakens might Krakens migrate up rivers like salmon in early spring. Um, Not exactly sure what kind of rivers they'd be migrating up, but I'd be shitting my pants if I saw these tentacles. Like they really aren't evil, but you just see these like tentacles like moving along the river and just like lazily slapping their way, trying to go up waterfalls and stuff, and you're just like, what the? Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. Movakal's like, yeah, hermit crabs moving dungeons and cities. Oh, hell's yeah. Yeah, the what's the classic image of the giant turtle with the city on its back, or is it giant turtle with goats with the city with the world in a bowl or something? But oh yeah, having like a giant animal or something moving, and then like layering a bunch of those things where maybe you have these massive giant animals moving cities on their back, and then you have like mounted riders on the ground and in the air swirling around them. Like from a distance it might just look like a flock of birds, but you get closer and they're flying hippogriffs or griffins or giant eagles or pterodactyls or something, and needing to contend with like food and water and safety and resources and all that kind of stuff. I like that. Yeah. Yeah, where did the dungeon go? A hermit crab took it as its new home. Chase it. Yeah. So let me give you another full disclosure here. I had a bit of a discussion. I've been having a bit of discussion with the crew over at N World, who's been gathered together to help write the Level Up 5e, the Advanced 5th Edition Dungeons and Dragons project they're working on now. And of course, you guys know that I am very small writer, but I had this idea and I couldn't let it go. And long before watching Nomad Land, I had always wanted to create a world based on the diaspora of peoples, especially African, but just general peoples. And it made me think about the spread of like Europe around the world historically. And there was a comment made. I I'm going to butcher the quote, but it's something like the European countries at one point had a flag in so many countries that the sun never set on their empire. It's something to that event, and I know someone. There's a quote out there, and I wouldn't know how to look for it. But the point of it was like, I wonder if how that endeavor would be if you couldn't go back home. And so the idea in my head was like, wow, I wonder how or if there could be the sun never sets on the British Empire. That's it, Ushi. And I was wondering about like what what if you couldn't go back home? Like you had your own society and people, and everybody there was like, yeah, we have to pack up our stuff. What do you take with you, both physically, like clothing and important items and things, and then what do you leave behind? What part of your society or behavior? And now you have to live in these other places, and you can never stay still. Whatever happened, whatever cataclysm or battle of the gods or ripping the worlds apart or it doesn't matter the reasoning, but whatever the reasoning is, you got to keep moving. And I thought that would be a great idea to use as our fuel for this week. And then, of course, I sold that idea to them, and they were just like, "Hell, there's no way this can't be made." So, um, the working title now is Endless Dawn. Maybe something it'll be something else, but we're designing tools and a setting around the idea of and especially around our journey rules that are in Level Up 5e, journey and exploration and environmental rules, because they're so robust and people are loving it. That yeah, so I guess that's another part that had me fueled, and I was like, wait a minute, I wonder what you guys think about it. Um, So let's see. Cam says you could say that the anime One Piece is a story about pirate life cycles during migration. I think piracy is a perfectly fits into this, because so much of people and societies that have to move are based on any number of factors, whether it's following some other migratory animals and following them because maybe they are able to find like food and water sources. They understand about temperature and seasonal changes. So it might be, hey, I don't know where we're going to go, but I'm going to follow them instead. And migrations can be any number of things, whether it's just human beings going somewhere warm before it gets cold and switching vice versa. It could be weather events. Maybe there's terrible hurricanes or storms or tornadoes or earthquakes or forest fires or something that volcanoes or what have you that people have to move away from and go back to and stuff. Um, Oh yeah, thank you very much, there, Ushi. There's a ton of that kind of stuff. Ushi's just mentioning that the super cool. I have lots of End World from Kickstarters. Definitely interested. Yeah, it's currently levelup5e.com is the website, and periodically new playtest materials are out. So all of the playtest material is out for all of the character classes, plus Inspiration and Destiny is out. The preliminary journey rules are out. I did it's going to be released Saturday, but I decided to do a read through. So I'm planning on doing an audio version of all the playtest materials. So I'm going to read all the Level Up 5e playtest materials, and that'll be released on Friday. I mean Saturday. I could release it earlier, but it's hard listening to my own voice, to be honest with you. Yeah, it took me about an hour to read it with a little background music and whatnot. You don't see my face; I just start reading through it. But yeah. Combat maneuvers are playtest materials for combat maneuvers are in there as well. There's about 170. They're still tweaking them because they're being tweaked through survey. So not only are the materials out there for Level Up 5e, but the surveys are there so that the feedback can start to get it tweaked. um, Movacall says, I made a one shot with the hermit crabs. Somebody happens to like hermit crabs, which is actually a really good idea as well. A player was a cleric in a city where every building was a hermit crab home, a moving city. But then the temple hermit crab suddenly walked off and they had to find it Nemo style. I love that. I love that idea. And listen, depending on like when it comes to monsters and things, because I'm gonna leave this hermit crab comment up here. The we often we often devolve into monster equals experience points, which means the minute something shows up, we have to fight it. But humanity has always lived in synergy with nature for its entirety, for whatever reason there is, right? Monsters that are well fed may not need to fight other people. They don't need to go after the PCs because they're not starving or something, or following a herd of migratory buffalo or something. It's not like they automatically stampede people. It's just that they're out there doing their own thing. And I smell something strange, but all right, I guess if you're going to follow with this, we could go along the same thing. So on one hand, the PCs that may have to, leave their home might find these, for example, these giant hermit crabs scary, but the people living in and around them are like, no, this is just a general regular old thing. I don't know, steam buckets of I don't know, fish guts or something and give it to them to eat, and in return we just live on their backs. Or maybe the giant crabs are so huge they don't even notice the human beings living in these like hermit crab cities on their back, just as an example. So and lastly, maybe you can tweak this so many different ways. Factions that are skilled in the domestication of, like, say, animals or whatnot. The ranger, druidic, maybe even barbaric styled player characters and NPCs that are extremely knowledgeable about the type of fantastical animals that move and dwell in different regions. Also, if for some reason there's some cataclysm that's forcing people to move, it also means that normally nomadic peoples from one region might be forced to go into a region or an environment that they are not used to. So, yeah. Uh, Here we go. Cameron says during the days of the North American bison, that migration would be an event celebrated by many native tribes. Imagine the thunder of the endless hooves as you wait on horseback for the right moment. Oh, hell yeah! And to this day, it's a, of course, it's a protected, herds are a protected species, and and listen, it doesn't need to be land based at all. You can follow aquatic seals and dolphins and otters, or birds of avians of all kinds, heck, even bats and things like that. Like, maybe there's some reason for that, and the player characters following them, it might be necessary to either find an adversary, like, for example, there might be the the players understand that their adversary is following the migration of the bison, and you don't know where they're at, but you can definitely put your ear to the ground and listen out for like millions of them. And there was a period of time when, if I understand, that the bison used to run in herds that numbered in the millions or more, and they were slaughtered. Yep, because we're stupid human beings and can't have good things. Can never have good things, as they were like slowly, not slowly, but massively killed over so many years. It's crazy. Um, Calls like, someone's stealing the bank. Hermit crab. Yeah, riding away with it, moving sideways or something. But that would be pretty interesting. Like, a wizard needs to find a library, and it's like it's on the back of some massive monster somewhere, and they have to get that information from other nomad tribes, which is kind of my point. Circling back a little bit more to our point of Monster Monday, is I think this also Hey Vince, I think this also brings up the point of being able to merge exploration, our combat, and our social interactions all into one. I think it lends itself really well to migratory nomadic encounters, because, on one hand, yes, you might need to fight the thing to kill the thing to get your experience points, but yet on the other hand, there is this, hey, we need to talk to people to get the information to, say, find the library that's on the move, or discover where the mobile city that's built by the gnomes and the dwarves rolled onto as they try to collect more fuel for their steam powered engine city, while the hermit crab riding druids or something are just passed them by 3 months earlier or something, and the wizard is like still trying to find that library so he could learn fireball or whatnot. And I like that a lot. And even the idea of trying to find resources, clean water, food. I think this also lends itself to a lot of exploration. And again, both it, both the nomadic migration of the PCs, I'm going to call it a home base, if they are loyal to or attached to some kind of caravan group, or even people of their own culture, and then separating from them to have their own adventures, to have to come back. Like, for example, the player characters might have to say, "Hey, listen, guys, you guys have to keep moving forward. You can't stop. The winter weather systems are so bad that we don't have peace and tranquility. It's when it's hot, it's blazing hot. When it's cold, you can freeze to death, and so on and so forth. Torrential rain, flood, mudslides, and all that kind of stuff. So maybe the people have to move on, and the player characters are given a lot of tension time in the sense that, hey, we need to go off and do our own thing, but we also need to get back to the main group before it's too late. And so I like that. I like the idea of like a tension timer as well. This may not show up completely, but I'm going to try to read as much of this as possible. Migration of Monsters is a setup. Okay, hold on. Let me read most of it, and then I'll push it up in the beginning. Migration of Monsters is a setup I sprinkle in when I want to allude to a future creature. Yep. Say a green dragon has moved into a forest due to its swamps being drained by people, then moves into the forest, scaring all the monsters and creatures out into the people's lands. So they send heroes back to take it down full circle. And that is I don't want to say just common inciting event, but it actually is rather, when I say common, I don't mean common in the sense of role playing games. I'm talking about nature, right? Something happens that moves one type of animal into another region that causes a disruption of everything in that new region, and then that starts to move further and further. Like, for example, migrations happen in the first place because of seasonal changes and maybe even ecological changes by human beings or whatever. And so the birds, insects, horses, whatever, they move to another region, and then boom, they get there, and everything there is like, whoa, there's been a real disruption. I need to get out of here. And you are absolutely correct. Like, when you say allude to another creature, when the green dragon moves into that forest, and then all the creatures in the forest start, the owl bears and the axe beaks and the ankhegs start acting crazy and attacking local farmers or whatnot. The farmers are like, there's something wrong. What the hell's going on? We even see this with our classic humanoids, right? The goblinoids get pushed out of their region, the Badlands or whatever it is, and they start attacking local people. Well, why? And then the inciting event is like, well, yeah, why are they attacking? Well, the dragon that moved in kick them out, or at least they're freaking scared of it. And so now they're where they normally had great resources, they no longer have them. They get moved into the more civilized lands. And then here you have a story. Oh, it's the bugbears that are attacking. It's the owl bears that are attacking our livestock. Why? And then that's your first to third event level adventure, and then it moves on from there. So Movacall, I absolutely agree with you. And again, I think this gives us a great idea for, like, it's the consequence idea, right? Like, both the player characters who want to stay still may see things changing around them, and as the player characters move themselves, they may be creating this ripple effect throughout the world. Connected to this other comment that Vince talks about a sandbox. Like Vince is saying, I think in a sandbox migration should be very common to show that something has changed for the worse. Has changed for the worse for some, and I agree that, like, if the player characters are with a caravan of 20 or 30 people or something like that, it may not have that much of a change, but both animalistic and societal changes may still be a thing. If you stop at a river to fish and to get your supplies, maybe there's a tribal group that's like, why are you need to ask us permission. You're in our territory. The thumbnail shows a pack of wolves, right? Well, there's lots of predatory animals that spray their region, and they're like, this is our territory. Don't you come into our region unless you ask permission, or maybe not even. Resources are extremely important. And there's an old adventure. I want to call it X1, Isle of Dread, I believe I believe the module was called X1. And in the Isle of Dread was literally a sandbox. Here's an island, bam. There's stuff on the island. Here's the hex map. Here are the 5 or 6 most important things. Boom, here we go. Hey there, Jeff. Good morning to you too. Must be in the States then, or at least the Americas. So great to have you here. The idea that the you have a sandbox of here are our important locations or events or something scattered on a map, and then you might have like just as many side events that might happen in and around. But once the player characters start moving pieces, all of a sudden it creates this cascade effect of, oh, we found the old temple and desecrated it because that's what player characters do. Or we found the old Hermit Crab city migration and then something happens there. So yeah. Oh yeah. And I believe I've never seen the name before there, Buffington, but you are absolutely positively welcome here as we talk unscripted about our theme this week and today, especially on this Monster Monday, is about migration and nomad lifestyle of both our adversaries and NPCs and monsters and all that kind of stuff. Now, I do feel like another thing that might happen in this kind of nomadic world would be you're going to have lots of things moving and then just as many things staying still. And so the concept that I'm thinking of are like maybe whatever is causing everyone in society and everything to move might be so devastating that there might be these massive ancient cities that have to empty out and then be repopulated, almost as if I can get a little meta here, there are dungeons that keep getting emptied out and then being repopulated by different adversaries over different periods of time because different peoples can live and survive, or monsters can live and survive based on the regions that are around them. So, for example, I don't know, I'm going to call it there might be an empty city on the coastline that gets flooded, or there might even be an ancient city in the desert that gets swallowed up by the massive sandstorms or whatnot, or the weather, the temperature drops so deeply that the the frozen wastelands are just not possible to live in by anything except the most extreme monsters. So everyone leaves, and then during the spring thaw, they move back into these massive cities, which can protect them. And normally they're not able to do that. I hear you guys talking over in the corner. Um, Vince says, in my new game, Visitors, the Infection. Oof, ooh, that sounds terrible just from the title. I mean, the characters are alien parasites that have to constantly flee from humans trying to extinguish them. That's a different point of view. And there's nothing to say while not taking anything from your idea. There's nothing to say that the humanity trying to move throughout a world that has everything moving, that human beings themselves might be so small and insignificant that they might themselves be like bacteria or parasites or like viruses or something, living on the skins of other things that are moving throughout this major world. Perfect excuse to have the dungeon inside the monster that's moving along, or the boy, this plain landscape looks kind of weird. The ground is soft and spongy, and the trees are just like these long black roots that are sticking up, and you find out that it's just nothing but like facial hair or whatever. Yeah. There we go. Yeah. Death Angel Shadow. Ah, yeah. Okay. Now I know. I really love the Goodman Games republished modules. They are such quality works. I believe the Goodman Games published a dungeon inside a monster, if I'm not mistaken. I know a number of publishers have done so, but yeah, and then of course they have their funnel system. DCC Dungeon Crawl Classics have their funnel system, which I really love. Oh, okay. Now, um, along with Movacall mentioned before about like the inciting event, like the green dragon that the players don't know about moves into a region that disrupts the ecology, forcing other animals and monsters in a natural habitat to shift and move and get pushed into the human lands. I'm sure there's a ton of other monsters that we can use to elicit the same thing. And also, we often tend to think of player characters being the center of the world, and only interactions happen with the player characters versus something else. Like, let's go with the axe beaks. And the axe beaks are like running around and smacking their heads into trees to get like bugs inside of them, but they're roaming around in these herds. But we often don't mix and match and cause interactions with creatures that don't involve our player characters, right? Like the axe beaks might be running, and then the bugbear tribes might be hunting the axe beaks, but also the bugbears might have to they're suffering because they have a bunch of rot grubs because they were eating some um, uh, decomposing flesh from some other monster that was half eaten by the green dragon that lives in the woods, and like so on and so forth. I know it can be a little, you might this might get a little complicated, but you might not want to dive this deep into it, especially if the player characters aren't going to interact with it. But it might be interesting to go like, oh, no one likes the bugbears, but they are suffering because of a rot grub infection. And at the same time, they're also trying to hunt the axe beaks, in which case, maybe if we team up with the bugbears to attack the axe beak, maybe we can get some information because we can get some like Kentucky fried axe beak. You know what I mean? Like there are a number of ways we can do interactions socially and environmentally and through combat, and create this living, breathing interaction with so many things. A lot of times we don't encounter our adversaries in the midst of them doing something, like whether they're starving or they are afraid or they are diseased or they're lost or they're hunting or building homes or again putting crap on their back and jumping on the back of the hermit crabs and riding along the countryside to find a new home or something, right? Like salmon swimming upstream aren't really interested in you. They're interested in breeding. And that's where the bears like to grab their salmon as they start jumping up, moving upstream. The same thing can go for monsters and things in our city. We can this is a way to info dump on your player characters, right? Like if the player characters saw the hermit crabs and then they come across the scorpion riders or the group of scouts that are riding on the back of rattlesnakes or cobras, or there's a flock of vulture riders that keep circling overhead of the player characters, scouting them or something. This might give a clue further along for the player characters to say, oh, the the grasslands are turning to scrublands, turning into a desert. We are moving on from one region to another. And then the hermit crab group is like, yeah, we're not going to go much further because we really need to be, in areas where the land is moist or something. But we'll drop you off here. We'll see you in 3 months, right? Um, yeah. Death's Angel Shadow says I've started collecting their 5e conversions. Oh, that's right. Yeah, Goodman Games has been converting old traditional modules into 5e. Of old modules, they reprint the original first and second edition release stuff alongside a 5e conversion, so you can see the original in the same book as the updated 5e version. Isle of Dread is their second book. I didn't realize that. Um, I didn't realize they were printing both together. Um, and I'm not sure, and because I never knew about the legalities of the old TSR and pre-TSR printed stuff into now, because they even did first and second edition did a split from basic, was it BECME version versus first, second, and third edition and whatnot. So I didn't know about the legalities of anybody being able to use that, but yeah. Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. I'm gonna have to. Okay, I think I'm gonna have to look it up and invest in it. Because I remember playing those originally. Yeah, that's awesome. All right, don't want to get too squirrely. We're talking about something else here. The 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 other thing I like about nomadic migratory adversaries and monsters is the fact that you can very easily put the player characters literally in between A and B. Like whether it's I don't know, the march of the Yeah, I get squirrely here too. No, you're perfectly fine because kind of the channel's kind of devoted to being squirrely. I think we're gonna have to have a mascot or something like that. So yeah. I get very squirrely myself. The idea that the whatever adversaries need to get something, the player characters are right in the middle. So going back to Movakal's Green Dragon, maybe there's maybe there was a major forest fire or something that just happens. Big lightning bolt, boom, strikes, burns the forest down. Green Dragon needs to move. Well, Green Dragon moving, no big deal, right? And anywhere a Green Dragon lands, that's their home. It doesn't matter. But let's say that Green Dragon needs to migrate somewhere and maybe it has an entourage with it, or it's assembling. Maybe it lost its not lost its treasure, but lost its power over where it used to live, and it's going somewhere else. So now you have like this entourage following it. Maybe there are devotees to the Green Dragon, or the Green Dragon's like, mofos, you gonna follow me whether you like it or not. And they're like, yes, sir, okay, I'm sorry. Or the Green Dragon wants to breed, or there's great magics or something, or whatever the MacGuffin is far away. Put the player characters between it and the MacGuffin, and there you have some adversarial impact. The other thing too is, strangely enough, player characters tend to uh, for, they can tend to, it's not analysis paralysis, but come into a strange sedentary lifestyle. We've seen players who are like, "Oh, I'm a paladin and I'm an assassin and and then all of a sudden they like want to buy a tavern somewhere or like settle down, and you're sitting there like, okay, how do I have an adventure when all they want to do is like run a farm, or they want to become mercantile traders up and down a river, or all they want to do is run a museum or a library, and you're like, what happens? One great thing about this idea is that if the seasons change, or the weave has been broken and chaos magic sweeps through the region over certain periods of time, or the planet revolves, and yes, you have to move, or there's nomadic monsters that flow through a region. If your players don't move, you can have something move them, right? If they stay still, what the heck's going to happen? uh yeah. Hello, hello, check 1 2. Is this thing on? I cast the detect live chat for a DC 12. Hey D, what's going on there, man? Glad you could stop by. I hope your aerial endeavors are to your liking. I see your posts and stuff when the instas and everything like that. I'm really interested. I kind of lurk in the backgrounds. Uh, I'm a migratory bird following you on your aerial journey. um, Excuse me. Michael says, finally here. Okay. A dragon moving to a new location greatly affects the local environment. Just feeding something that huge would be a massive impact. Any local giants would see it as an act of war. Exactly. I mean, hell, like you said, just uh, how I couldn't imagine. I'm sure someone's already done it. The mathematical formula to figure out how much food a group like a massive dragon would have to eat every day. Now, of course, it's magic, right? What do the dragons eat? Well, they eat magic or something. Like you could be as snarky as that, but I think a better thing would be for them to, the dragon or the dragon's lackeys are like, well, we need to feed this thing like 12 to 15 cattle a day or bison or something like that, and that's what we're going to steal from the local people. Going back to Movakal's comment about a dragon moving in and it forces other things to happen. Death Angel Shadow says, yeah, they eat just about anything they want. Eat about whatever they want. Oh, hell yes. Hell yes. Even in Game of Thrones, um, Daenerys's dragons they were moving up the food chain because they were getting hungrier and hungrier, right? And how when resources are tight, that's a great way to move the needle around. even if you don't want this to be a survivalist game where you're tracking resources and such, even a player character that can create food and water or purify food and water, they themselves might be the resource other people want to kidnap or capture or beg or bribe or trade with to get food sources because, hey, did you hear this person create food and water? I heard they can create up to meals for like 16 people. We're going to steal some of that, right? What is that, Goodberry? Getting attacked by swarms of insects or something like that because they can smell the Goodberry on your lips and fingers all stained purple or whatever. I mean, there's any number of things that could happen in a traveling people. And I think food, water, shelter, um, safety, camping out and whatnot, I think is awesome. And I think is a great idea. And the hermit crab mobile dungeons or the once empty cities that are then repopulated because the seasons have changed or the chaos storms have moved on to a different area. This overriding tension of time, TER, time, energy, resources. That tension timer, I think, is a great way to move the story forward as well. Uh, Michael mentions in his world of Thole. Thole had a massive storyline where a nomadic hobgoblin um, Khanate was moving west. Everyone took notice from kingdoms to or autocracies, excuse me, and bandit lords. Everyone was on high alert. And see, even Michael brings up the point that even the arrival of a unknown factor causes people and animals and monsters and factions to react very harshly, right? Um, Heck, today, let's not get too political, but today, refugees moving across someone's border elicits all kinds of reactions, right? Where are they going to live? What about the resources? Should we even bother having them? Maybe we should kick them out. Maybe we need to, set up a barrier or a wall or make them leave at gunpoint. Maybe we should embrace them. Why are they leaving in the first place? How come? What's happening in their home country that's causing them to move? And in a fantasy realm, who knows what this might be? Could you imagine the elemental planes spewing out all the elementals because of something happening in the elemental planes because I don't know, some power from the uh, shadow realm or the astral plane starts moving in, and the people from the plane of fire are like, "Yeah, we need some place to live, so we're going to move here in the coastline." And everyone's like, "You're setting everything on fire," and they're like, "Really? I never noticed." Okay. Oh man. Okay. Here we go. I'm going to get into the chat. Michael goes on to say, even at low levels, imagine the impact of the entry of a large Gnoll warband. Ooh, Gnolls kill and eat everything in their way. It would be like a plague wielding a bunch of battle axes. It sure would. Yeah, yeah, yeah. um, Goes on to say, made worse when any hyenas are reborn as Gnolls, and it's practically a zombie plague. Absolutely. I mean, you know. The some would say that the terrain in Europe in many shaped the cultures in Europe because so many resources were unavailable that they had to move to other places. They didn't have, vast landscapes to grow food and to hunt migratory animals and only kill a few and knowing that the rest of them are going to live. It's like, hey, we need clean water and food and shelter, and they've got it somewhere else, and there's only a limited amount of it. And especially if a culture believes that, that's really a thing. Dante mentions that migratory monsters might be a good way to put new threats back into regular routes. The players may be too accustomed to breezing through. Oh yeah, the classic trade route that's really safe, or the forest that the players have moved into. The classic we clean the dungeon and now we live here kind of thing. And what a great way to have waves of, I don't know, goblin riding pterodactyls sweep through the region and start causing all kinds of disruptions. And again, I'm going back to what Movicol said, and I know you guys are already thinking it. It also is like, what inciting event caused this thing to happen? Is it a natural progression of these animals or monsters or something, or did something kick the green dragon out of its home? Right, which goes on. A, green dragon. B, what the hell could kick a green dragon out of its house? Mufa, what's going on there? Says a kingdom that uses dragons to project power. Weaker enemies kill all their cattle and then watch the hungry dragons destroy the more powerful kingdom. Which, again, political use of eliciting a thing to happen to cause something else to happen. Weird, hey, someone burned down the forest of the green dragon. The green dragon moves on. The green dragon's entourage causes all kinds of disruption. We need to kill the green dragon. And oh, what the hell happened? Who caused the green dragon to leave its area? And maybe the green dragon is going like, you know what? When I get set up, I'm gonna go kill those mofos. Ooh, set me up like that. Cameron says, what if Goodberry made you stoned and was addictive? That might make a fun resource that involves risk management. Also, come on, you guys know, you know there's resources out there. Like, it ain't just killing the axe beak, but maybe it's getting its chicken livers or something, right? There's a lot of monsters out there that are um, cause hallucinatory effects, acidic effects. Their scales or their chitin or whatever is like armor. So collecting those resources might be important as well. Like, milking the poison out of a giant cobra, getting the liquid brain matter out of a intellect devourer or something like that. Maybe these collecting those resources might be exceptionally important as well. Heck, that might even replace the library for the wizard. Instead, what it is just getting resources, and those resources correspond to the magic that players might have available to them. So if they fight giants, well, maybe some kind of giant effluvia is something that allows a caster to cast enlarged spell or some kind of enhanced strength spell or something like that. Michael says Matt Koval had a video revolving around war and the steady state world, essentially why nations and people seem to be in constant conflict. And resource, territory, preemptive striking, a lot of that stuff, it happens so much. And why not? Why not? And the roving band of gnolls moving through different nations might itself elicit more reactions than a little bit, right? One nation says, you purposefully sent those gnolls into our region. And the other nation's like, no, we just, are you kidding me? We opened up the door to let them keep moving. We didn't try to stop them. And the enemy nation's like, yeah, you meant to do that, didn't you? Starting a fight when there really didn't need to be one. Players, we are tired of exploring lost dwarven cities. NPC. Outside right now, it's wasp season. Players on the crash mark. Yeah, like that's another thing too. Like maybe the environment has changed so much, like I don't know, like plagues or zombie infestation or something like that, or the winter season rolls in that forces the players to go down, say, into the dwarven mines or the go across the desert plains or something, just because everything's changing so much. Cameron's like migrationception. Yeah, absolutely. Oh man, you guys are silly. Dante brings up the fact that also a lack of regular migration would be a good hook. Like the village hunt season is interrupted and they need adventurers to go find the herd and why they aren't coming. Ooh, that's a great way to flip it. That's kind of a subplot in Dances with Wolves, actually. Yeah, the hey, we've been sitting by the lakeside and we normally know that the return of the birds or the sweeping through of the insects or whatever is supposed to come by and they haven't. And we know in reality that human interaction has caused some animals to not migrate when they should be, and causing their deaths. And if the birds eat the insects and the birds don't leave because we're feeding the birds, then you have the issue of, Well, if the birds don't leave and they start to die out because it's too cold, now the insects, when they come back, are going to be in full force. Mm-mm-mm. Mm-mm-mm. Hold on, I'm going to come back to Michael's. Um, Cameron says migration of prey animals would bring in all sorts of predators and hunters. Whole primal orc tribes might not come out of their cave systems until the migration of the axe beaks starts. Exactly. Exactly. And that also lends itself to a social construct, right? Like on one hand, the what we would normally consider the barbaric orcs aren't barbaric at all because they've been hunting the axe beaks every time the migration comes through. But then if humanity moved into the region and starts going after the same axe beaks, maybe the orcs start getting a bit violent, and the PCs find out, well, maybe they aren't really bestial that we think they are. Maybe they're just hungry, and they're like, "Listen, we've been staying away from your lands. You're moving into ours, and the axe beaks are pretty damn rough. We need to be barbaric to go after them." Oh man. Mike Gould says there was a long storyline at my table where one card from a deck of many things, affected world politics. One player pulled the card with the deed, which started a conflict between two dragon lords. Ooh, open war. Yeah, that led to a direct conflict between uh, what's the dragon's name? Got to pronounce these right. Vano Maladar, an ancient green, and a Fury's twins, Ashwin and Magmix, adult reds that led to a volcanic eruption that led to a war being poisoned in an Iron League. So now the orcs invaded the Juvian order for resources, open war, all because one dragon died. This spawned another storyline where civil war began with the Iron League. And yeah, it's funny how, like, not funny, hilarious, but funny, like, man, one little thing, you push one little domino over and it causes this landslide of so many other effects. And I feel like the migration and the nomadic order of things moving is a great storyline. I think it's undeserved. Now, I'm gonna tie this back just slightly back into yeah, Michael's like one card caused this whole thing. Well, one card and the machinations of a DM. That's that added something like that into their game setting. I will end this by saying that one of the things I'm going to revert this back to the movie Nomad Land. One of the things I really appreciated in Nomad Land was that normally player characters and travel and exploration, it's very insular, right? We've got like 3 to 7 PCs rolling together. They're this motley crew, and they're very much like it's us against the world. We're just going to do that. Uh, it's very much like the idea that we're the ones that are moving through the world, and nobody else matters because we've got our swords and our wits and our power behind us. And stuff. Yeah, Michael's like, well, fair. I do tend to have plans within plans, and in this context, I feel like the one thing I talking about plans within plans, what I liked about Nomad Land was that there is a subculture of people who are nomads, and despite the conditions in which they are forced to become nomads, they band together to find the good things in this nomadic lifestyle, this houseless society, neither homeless nor just travelers, but nomads moving from these migratory job sites and how to live, and they're older and they can't fit in a normal society. And there are reasons, and there are people who travel around and could come together where the lizard folk and the orcs and the gnomish tribal people or nomadic people or society or something come together in these different areas, just to bond together or exchange information or gossip or just entertainment or resources to buy and sell and trade things, or to learn about what new things are happening in the world to separate again. And even though they might be enemies and adversaries, in this context, they say, hey, we're all going to meet at this oasis or this monument or this lost city to exchange things. And I feel like the pushing that push and pull is missing because we normally have PCs explore dangerous region. That's it. As opposed to PCs exploring, meeting other explorers who are like, "Oh, you guys are explorers. Great. Let's sit down, have a talk, do some gossip, exchange some information. Hey, maybe we might want to travel along with you or whatever." Yeah. Dante says, not knowing that a monster has a migration season, sure, sure to its time cycle, it would be a good hook. Maybe like a kraken attack, spooking everyone, but an adventurer finds out it's part of a 1,000-year cycle. Right, the players might be in the midst of they don't know that they are interrupting or in the midst of something that happens every 1,000 years. Most societies that don't know these things happen, or the oracles that keep predicting it and everyone keeps ignoring the thing that's going to happen, is what happens, right? Because lifespans tend to make people forget about something. It's the watchers on the wall. Well, the White Walkers haven't been seen in 7 generations, and everyone's like, whatever. The White Walkers don't exist, and so I definitely agree with that. Like, you might find out that there's the strange thing about a migration might be that we are in the way, not the monster. Oh no, the axe beaks are coming through. Well, maybe you should just move out their way, which might be one way of solving it. Although they might be very destructive, like, I don't know, like sweeping locusts or something, taking out people's crops. Well, you need the crops to live, but the locusts are going to sweep through anyway. So you have that. Cameron says, I also use industrial orcs with Mad Max, Mad Maxy steampunkish machines, and I can see a group of them migrating across the desert to seek annual meteorites. Oh, I love that. Uh, I, Alex and I from a Critical Hit had dwarves that used desert dwarves that used and glass and mirrors and lenses to use heat to heat up things and stuff like that. Yeah, and having them move from place to place in like maybe giant machines or digging tunnels or giant walking spiders or something like that. That'd be kind of cool. I love it. Lastly, Mike Gould says krakens are less a monster and more an event that shapes the world. A kraken migrating into your area would wipe out fish stocks. The Salt in Wounds is a game setting that I have from J.M. Perkins. I can't believe I remember the name. Anyway, Salt in Wounds was about a Tarrasque that was taken down and harpooned with 13 harpoons to keep it from lifting up. But a Tarrasque itself is another world-shaping thing that might be on a migratory move as well, where humanity is just like, we can't take the Tarrasque down. We just need to survive after it moves through, right? Or we need to keep moving because the Tarrasque keeps moving around, destroying and eating and that kind of stuff. Or the gods sent the Tarrasque down to destroy humanity, and we're like, F you, we're just going to pick up our stuff and keep moving. So that might be a thing as well, where these giant, massive CR30 plus monsters are roaming around like kaiju or whatever, and humanity is like, we're smart. We're just going to keep moving and make sure and keep track of where they're at or where they're going, or live in the what's left of the aftermath as they keep moving on. Yeah. Dante says, unless it's part of some life cycle thing, the monster can have weird super biology. Maybe it eats it's full in one area and it only needs to eat a little bit as it migrates. Absolutely, monsters. We've seen alligators or snakes or something. They'll eat and then kind of go into a sedentary state. So maybe feeding something with a nation's populace puts it into a sedentary state to help save everybody else. And of course, the nation's like, what the hell? Why you can't feed them that? Movcall says, make an enormous bag of devouring to send the Tarrasque to another plane. Not sure how you would make an enormous bag of devouring, but I don't know. Who knows? Maybe the Tarrasque is at the bottom of that bag of devouring or something. It's been there all along, eating all this time, which is why the bags of devouring even exist. Yeah. All right, guys. Got to get out of here. One last comment here. Dante says, makes you wonder, what did the Kraken hunt in that distant sea? Going to need a bigger airship. Yeah, airships might be a thing to get up in the air unless you have like flocks of rocks, ROCs flying around, eating things or something. I mean, you could really go all out. Um, Cam's like salmon migration might be might be fun for players if they were playing bears. Sounds like a one-page RPG, I think. A Tarrasque is literally the biggest cicada ever. It sleeps forever to wake up and affect the environment. One waking up only to lay one egg, rampage around and die. Then the egg hatches years later. A giant cicada. Ooh. Could you imagine? Well, there would be. I guarantee you, there would be a battle over that egg, and if it lays that egg, Death's Shadow says, we're going to need a bigger insert vehicle here. Yeah, yeah. Giant caravan carrying around a Tarrasque egg. Yeah. Peace. Peace, you guys. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for being part of the show. I really appreciate it. Please like, share, subscribe, let people know about it. If you have some enemies, let them know. Maybe you're like, God, I hate this dude. I'm going to let everybody know just to see how bad he is or something. I don't care. But I will suggest to you guys go over to levelup5e.com. Check out this project that's being put together by N-World. You can take part in the surveys, download the playtest materials, and create this advanced 5th edition project. And I am pushing it because, why? Because I'm part of the design team. A very, very tiny, small part, but a vocal one. So I hope this helps them out, and I hope they find this out too. So guys, peace. Have a great day.